Hello. When I walked in Newcastle, a girl that I worked with, she used to say, he's geegious, right, which is gorgeous, but it wasn't even in Newcastle, because people didn't say geegious, but she did. So hello, geegious people. How are you? Today I'm talking about manipulation of the mind, the way that cults manipulate people, and what I've seen lately with all of that. I'll tell you all about it on the other side. So I'm not an expert on cults. I haven't done a degree on it or anything like that. I did live in one for 20 years. So as the expression goes, I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty good. I can spot cults. I can spot them. And I know we've talked about this before, where I left one cult, walked into another one, left that one, walked into another one, and then came into the Truther movement and found myself in another cult. Like, for God's sake, we can't help it. We make cults. But what I'm aware of is one thing, a tool that the Jehovah's Witnesses used, and it's just a tool that all cults use, is this. Their job is to reduce the intelligence quotient of the people in their group. And they do that by, how can I put it, like watering down gradually over a long time, watering down the information. Let me tell you that when I was a kiddie and we used to study with the Jehovah's Witnesses, these books, like Daniel book, they were so effing complicated, really complicated, going into the nitty gritty and the years and the measurements and all of that. It was just impossible to understand. Now, recently I looked at a watchtower, okay, and the language in there was really like piss poor. That would be what I would say in terms of, like, you know, creating cognition, getting you to think. No, there's no thinking with these. So what the system that they use, and this is the system of cults, and this is the system of brainwashing, is they used to get us to read a paragraph, and at the bottom there would be a question, and the paragraph would say something like this. This is the latest. Jehovah is a loving God, and he loves everybody as long as they do what he says. Okay, so that's nice and nice straight. And then the question at the bottom says, what kind of God is Jehovah? Okay, and then we all had to put our hand up, and you say, yes, Brother Smith, and everybody. I had brothers everywhere. When I was a kid, I was so confused because I had so many brothers and sisters. I thought, God, my father's very prolific. He must have a sperm count of like 70 trillion. So anyway, and I would say, reading underlined, Jehovah is a loving God, but only with those who do what he says. Okay? And that was it. And then the man on the platform would say, well done, that's right. Jehovah is a loving God, but we must do what he says. Okay? This is classic mind control, brainwashing. The same system used to be used, I think the Japanese used it, which was they would get a soldier and a prisoner of war, and what they would do is they would make him say things against his country. Right? They would just say, if you just say this, even though you know it's not true, just say it, and then we'll give you something, or we won't beat you today, something like that. And they would get them to say the words even though they didn't believe them. And it was in the act of saying the words, even though they didn't believe them, that broke the spirit. The speaking of the words. Wow. You know, words have power. Words manifest. Words create. And so this is why when I was talking about self-talk, I was saying to you, say it anyway, even if you don't believe it. It doesn't really matter that much, because our mind is listening to everything we say. even when we talk about somebody else, it thinks we're talking about ourselves. Well, the same applies. When you start saying stuff, even if you don't believe it, it becomes your reality. Okay? That's why we have to be very, very careful these days. What made me think about was this movement of PC. Okay? That means that you can't say stuff if it's going to offend somebody. I listened to a beautiful George Carlin stand-up show where he was talking about how they've watered down language, right? Watered down language. And he was talking about in the First World War, soldiers who were damaged, they used to get shell shock. Shell shock, which explains fairly, and it's quite a heavy name. And over the years, they started to change it. And they changed it and they watered it down. And what he's saying is the watering down, they put more syllables in. They make it less understandable. Until now, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? Which, shell shock, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what society, and when I say society, let's just say the baddies, right, who are manipulating society, what they're aiming to do is to water down our language, to take away the power of the words, our spelling. Okay? And so now, I heard somebody who was saying, you can't say the word guys anymore. Hey guys, because you don't know what genders might be there in the group. And so as not to offend, you've got to say, hey, people of various types and styles. Oh, wow, I can't remember what they said. Anyway, it was a load of bullshit anyway. But what I'm aware of is that what they're doing is that they're bringing in repeatedly new words, new ways of referring to old things. Okay? And we've got to be careful with that. That isn't, I'm not saying we shouldn't evolve with time. Language is always evolving. But it's who's behind the evolution and with what intent. And what I see is that, for example, what are they starting to do with these books about all kinds of weird, horrible gender stuff? It's going to the kiddies. Simplistic language, blah, 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 blah. And then the teacher will just be asking questions about what it says in the book. And therefore the brainwashing begins. And so we've got to be careful with with every input that we get. Okay? When somebody gives us some information and then asks us a question about it, like, tell me what you've understood, okay? Just be careful. Because if you give them the answer that they want, just because that's what they've asked for, I'll give them that. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. Far better to keep yourself safe and say, well, one opinion is, however, there are many other opinions. Okay? What this does is this gives your mind, when you say, well, one opinion is this, however, there are many. Your mind then goes into like an overdrive situation of, there are many. So I'm going to find out those many opinions. Suddenly, flexibility. It's the same in our movement, right? In movement, like, makes me think of going to the toilet, but in our movement, there are so many people who are fixed on one belief. That's how it is. Please don't. Once we understand, and I'll talk, because I've talked in the past about the truth, once we understand about the truth, that it doesn't exist, and we will never, ever, ever have contact with the truth. We won't. We haven't got the capacity in our minds to contact the truth. So once you understand that, if you believe that as the truth, or maybe, then what happens is you can't be dogmatic. You can't say this is the only way, my way or the highway. Okay? So, and remember, that way is the ego's way. Okay? Which is my way is right and your way is wrong. Okay? That's just the ego. Because there are, as I say, there are many ways of skinning a cat. That's probably politically incorrect to say that. but just an expression I know. There's many ways of skinning a cat. Is that right? I don't know. Anyway, there are so many options to everything. There are so many truths out there. There isn't just one. Your truth, my truth, their truth, everybody's truth. There's got to be room for everything. And so don't allow yourself to get caught up in this. Even if you think it's a good truth, right? Even if you think that it's a righteous, wonderful truth. I'll give you an example. So, somebody who's a Christian, right, and who believes and lives a beautiful life. Super. Absolutely super. But then they'll say, nobody reaches salvation except through Jesus Christ. Okay? Nobody reaches salvation. Now that is a very, very, very hard belief. Nobody, because Christianism is only about, 25% of the world. Not massive. There are a lot more people who believe in other stuff. And so it's kind of like, with the best of intentions, we corner ourselves into a belief. And it can be the same for us. Right? No, I believe that. When you catch yourself saying that, I believe that. There's nothing wrong with that. Beliefs are important. We live our life around our beliefs. Don't be frightened of saying, I believe that. However, there's got to be an extra bit. But I understand that's just my belief and has nothing to do with the truth. Right? As long as you qualify it with that, you're fine. It's when you say, I believe that, and I'm not shifting, I'm not budging. Oh, what a shame. When you say, at the moment, that's what I believe. At the moment, fantastic, because your mind's listening. Everything we say is a spell. And so when you say, at the moment, this is what I believe, your mind has room to maneuver. But when we say, I believe this, and I ain't budging, the mind is listening and says, okay, I'll make sure you don't budge from this. And that's why people have beliefs, the same beliefs all of their life. Poor sods. I love changing my beliefs. Do you know what? This is something that I've noticed. I've got these beliefs, okay? And as I get older, I had to throw away so many. And then I've got these kind of core beliefs, right? But I would love somebody to come up and shatter one of my beliefs. I would love it. I don't know whether anyone's ever asked you this question. What would you rather have? Like all the money in the world, or would you like to know everything? Would you like to know everything? Okay. And I always say I want to know everything. Now, I don't say that glibly because I know that the truth is very uncomfortable. Really, the whole truth is very uncomfortable. You can never rest again in your life once you know the whole truth. And we only know a little tiny bit of the truth. We get like a snifter of it, and we can't rest. So, but I would want to. I would want to. And if there was, there would be a very high price to knowing all of the truth, I think. Very high price. The idea is that we're not allowed to come here and know the truth because it would spoil the game. The game wouldn't be as much fun. It's like playing hide and seek, and then at the beginning of the game the person says, by the way, they're hiding behind that tree. That would take all the fun out of it. It's the same if we came here and we knew all of the truth. I'm not saying that when we go to the other side we find out all of the truth, but I think we find out a bit more. Yeah? More than what we have here. Okay? So leave yourself open to having your truth shattered. And it doesn't matter, if it's your best vase, you're going to be deeply upset if that gets shattered. However, if it's just, like a plastic cup that you carry stuff in, it's handy. I'll just carry this truth around here until somebody gives me a better one. Then you're free. Truly, you're free. You're not tied. You're not in a prison of the truth, as so many people are. Poor bastards. Okay, I love you all. I'll leave that with you, and I'll speak to you later.